Hey guys, this is Jay Calder from JAYONBOXING here with a preview and predictions for the Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin card. And as always, these are just my takes, your predictions, your picks, preview, all that stuff can be left down in the comments section below. Would love to hear them all. But before we get started, please be sure to like, subscribe, share. Greatly helps out the channel and I do appreciate it. Just got over the 1,000 mark for subscribers, which was really cool. So definitely helps and definitely appreciate it. Now, a little bit of show info here. This, as mentioned, is headlined by Gervonta Davis taking on Frank Martin. This will be at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada, airing on Amazon pay-per-view in the lightweight division with the WBA lightweight title owned by Davis on the line. In the co-featured bout of the evening, we will see Benavidez debut at light heavyweight against former titleist Oleksandr Gvozdyk, and this, of course, will be with no title currently on the line. In any event, that is your card. Well, a pretty solid little fight card here overall, something of a theme in 2024, so I won't complain too much. That being said, the main event and the co-main event are not exactly pick'ems, at least not on paper, but again, I digress. At least you get to see some talented fighters on the same show in relatively competitive bouts, which is about all boxing fans can ask for because we don't always get that, to be honest. Would this have been an HBO World Championship boxing card back in the day on regular-ish cable TV? Yes. Do I miss those? Yes, but here we are in 2024. So, with all that in mind, let's get into some of the biggest questions heading into this card. For starters, will Frank Martin test Gervonta Davis? That's the main event, has to be the main question. You want competition for Davis. He is one of the faces of boxing. Everyone will tell you, he will tell you. You want those fighters pushing themselves to see how great they are. Can Martin be the guy to show us some of that? Frank is talented, certainly has some skills. He's a boxer, puncher, but will throw his hands if he needs to. So on paper, it should at least be something that he can offer Davis. Still, a lot of that depends on how well Martin can handle the power. If he can, might have a solid fight on our hands. Another question would be, how does Benavidez acclimate to light heavyweight? In some ways, this is only interesting as a fight because of Benavidez moving up to light heavyweight. A career-long super middleweight, Benavidez is testing himself in a different way than just facing the best available opponent. He's testing new waters and new comfort zones for himself. Still, Gvozdyk is 37 years of age and has only had 3 fights since a 4-year layoff in the most recent years of his career after a bad loss to Artur Beterbiev. Does Oleksandr have enough to really test David in those kinds of ways? To be fair, Benavidez has been dropped, and at a higher weight, perhaps that can come into play a bit more. Gvozdyk, 37 or not, can box and be tricky, and if David isn't up to the challenge, Oleksandr is solid enough to show us that. Will he is the question, or does Benavidez look even better, fully fleshed out and less drained at the new weight? And finally, how well does the pay-per-view do? This shouldn't matter, but it does. Davis is a pay-per-view star. He draws. He's borderline mainstream in some ways. However, he might still be at that stage that he needs at least a name with a pulse across from him. Frank Martin has a pulse, but does the average dude on the street care? Do they know him? Does he have a name the way he might need to? Canelo still draws 500K or more. Opponent be damned. Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney just did 500 or more, depending on your sources, or zero buys if you ask Bob Arum, but they did a decent number by most accounts. How does Tank compare to those guys in 2024? Considering his stature and the claims that he makes in the sport, that'll be interesting to see for sure. But without much more ado and the questions out of the way, let's try to get to some of these answers and break these fights down. Starting off with the main event here and with the champion in Davis. For Davis, I think his goal should be to get a little more aggressive than he has in his last few fights, at least in spurts. Davis can fight forward or backwards anyway, so mixing it up makes sense. This belief is there for a few reasons. For starters, it seems Martin sits in the pocket defensively too much and isn't always great with his defense in going backwards. If you're Davis, with the power and accuracy you have, it makes sense to test his defense out in those areas. Martin doesn't fight nearly as well if he's only having to back up. He himself can box, but he wants to come forward and land something while controlling the action. Take the play away from him. Then once you tag him and force him to want to get a return, you can take those quick steps back and use those angles to land big counter punches. Your pull counter works well there, especially with your reflexes, as well as your left uppercut on the inside. That shot is one that can catch Martin coming in a bit more wild if you're forcing more of a back and forth fight out of him. The right hand will come in handy when Martin continuously dips to his right, use it to straighten him up, and then land the left over top as well. So come forward a bit more to dictate terms, land that right hand as he's dipping out of those straight lines, then tag him. Once he bites, set those traps and start working your angles and counters to have success. Now switching over to the challenger. For Martin, you're a solid boxer puncher and you can sit back and counter when needed. In this fight, you may need to do a bit of that. However, overall, that's a risk against a power puncher like Tank with the skill he possesses. That doesn't mean get reckless and just come straight forward in a buzzsaw line looking to try and get into a war. It just means stay busy enough that it doesn't allow Davis easy access to the center of the ring. One way to create that space and press forward is by keeping your shots quick and straight, not focusing on power too much, especially early. You have a bit of reach on Davis, so keeping your jab fast and sticking it out in that straight line makes sense for using that reach. It also lines up the backhand as well, which will have to work for you in this fight if you are to win. And it doesn't have to just be upstairs. You throw that left hand as a quick shot well to the body also. Get that going. Davis can be hard to hit clean anyway, so hitting the harder to avoid spots like the body can tax him and score as the fight wears on. Defensively, you will need to be a bit tighter than you have in previous fights. You dip to your right a bit too predictably and keep your right hand low. That's a bad combination for someone with fast hands like Davis. Be sure to just raise that hand up a bit and use more angles to keep him guessing at least a bit. So take the center of the ring a bit more. Don't hook with Davis in his big hook. Throw that 1-2 fast and straight down the middle. Make sure to hit that body as well and keep your defensive lapses in mind. And in terms of my pick here, maybe early, Martin keeps it interesting and forces an adjustment or two out of Davis. However, I think Davis settles in and starts picking his man apart. I think the underrated accuracy and the defense of Davis will make it hard for Martin, who will shell up eventually, possibly after being dropped by one of those big bombs. And Davis will cruise through many of those middle to late frames as a result. If Martin makes a big mistake late or Davis pushes, he might get the stoppage. Wouldn't surprise me at all, but I think Martin does enough to survive the full 12 as Davis closes out the show in relatively comfortable fashion. Winner, Gervonta Davis via unanimous decision. Now switching over to the co-featured bout here with Benavidez, you're a pressure fighter at your core, so you're going to want to apply that here. Gvozdyk wants to move, so you will be forced to come forward anyway to engage, but you're going to want to use a few weapons to make it easier. One way to slow him down is with hooks. It closes those exits if you get close and land those hooks as he tries to circle. This will help push him straight back and make pinning him down much, much easier. Once you're inside, you want to tax that body and try to slow him down both in terms of his hand speed as well as his footwork. When you've got Gvozdyk settled down a bit more, the overhand right and the uppercut will be big weapons for you as well. The overhand right as you're trying to get inside, and the uppercut when you have Oleksandr perhaps looking to try and come forward and hold a bit more or messy up your work. That uppercut can sneak in as well as a chippy left hook to really punish him. And of course, put those shots together. Your combinations will be very important for your success. This sort of action will create more of a need for Gvozdyk to exchange and get some real power shots in, but you, I think, have the advantage in those situations. So pile on that pressure, use that chippy left hook to pin Gvozdyk down, get inside, and land those combinations to really start pushing your man as the rounds wear on. Now, switching over to Oleksandr here, David isn't necessarily used to fighting fighters his own dimensions, if you will. You have the same height and a bit more reach, so use it to your advantage. That doesn't mean fighting a big man fight, but it means be okay with putting a bit of sting into your work from time to time. Get his respect early. Land something with a little meat on it. You can't just be fleet-footed the whole time. You have to be willing to stand and trade just enough to ensure Benavidez doesn't get a free pass to the inside. Now, you don't want to fall for the exchange battle. That's not what I'm saying either. That likely favors Benavidez, but you have to get his respect. So you want to mix up that work and use those combinations as well. Benavidez is slow-footed, so sticking and moving can potentially leave him ready to get caught by your faster combinations if he's out of position. Just make sure you're staying off the ropes and out of those corners by changing your direction quickly. I would also say get creative with the lead hand. You twist it over for a hook, you obviously jab well with it, just change its angles and keep Benavidez guessing. And at times, feint with it and land that lead backhand in its place. So get that respect early, stick and move, stay off those ropes, and land that solid lead backhand as well to have some success in this fight. Now, if it turns on my pick here, Gvozdyk will have some success early, but unless Benavidez is just really unsuited for the weight, I think his quick combinations and pressure will wear down the older fighter. Benavidez will press forward, landing the left hook to settle down Gvozdyk and start pushing forward with the faster blows. His combinations will come into play. I think Oleksandr will try to stand and defend himself at that point because he is a fighter, but Benavidez will land the more telling blows and badly drop him with the left hand as a result. Gvozdyk may beat the count, but he's finished soon thereafter along the ropes once Benavidez really gets going and hurts him again. Winner, David Benavidez via mid-fight stoppage. Maybe a bit later, but we'll go with mid here. And getting to the betting odds here, we have, as you can see on the screen, a couple of big favorites in Davis and Benavidez. Have not been able to find some over-unders, so to be perfectly honest with you here, don't have a lot of great options in my personal opinion. Of course, when I do find the over-unders, I will pin them as the top comment in the comments section below, but in any event, until then, these are your odds. And my prediction record as of this recording is 30-10 with 15 exact, but let me know your thoughts, your bets, your picks, all that good stuff down in the comments. And of course, please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, follow, and check out all the social media here. And be sure to visit JAYONBOXING.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, more, all that good stuff. And as always, until next time.